Well, let's get some more analysis on that, indeed, the legacy of Hugo Chavez. In Washington, D.C. for us is Peter Hakim, President Emeritus of the Inter-American Dialogue, which is a U.S. Center for Policy Analysis. Peter Hakim, the one philosophy, the one ideology that coalesced other nations to Hugo Chavez was his anti-imperialism. Did it serve any purpose ultimately?
Well, it's hard to, judge right at this particular moment, but it certainly helped mobilize the left in Latin America. It sort of gave a sense that Latin America was going to come together in some form or another. And indeed, Latin America, more than before, is showing a certain degree of solidarity, of loyalty. They don't criticize one another anymore. That may be his legacy. It may not be his legacy. Chavez may leave a mark on history, but he also may leave a deep wound or a scar, if you like. It's hard to make a judgment right now.
But in your opinion, do you think if Chavismo doesn't survive without Hugo Chavez, that would be a good thing?
Probably. I don't think Chavismo really contributed a whole lot. I think one idea he did contribute was the absolute need to address politics to the poor, the excluded, the disadvantaged. And that had to be a central focus of politics. Beyond that, he became a rather autocratic figure who centralized power, who really had no limits to his ambition for power.
The money that he was able to give other Latin American countries, the ones particularly who had the same leftist ideology as him, do you think that if that doesn't continue, it will weaken those governments in those countries? We're talking possibly Bolivia, we're talking Ecuador. There are others around the world as well. Cuba is an example.
Well, Cuba would be the hardest hit. Cuba receives something on the order of 100,000 barrels of oil a day from Venezuela. The year it's worth $3 or $4 billion. Without it, Cuba would face a deep humanitarian crisis. It might even face an economic collapse. But I think it will continue for some time. And I think the largesse will continue to other countries to the extent that the Venezuelan economy can sustain it. That's the big question, is where the Venezuelan economy is heading. The price of oil plays a crucial role, but the country is over-indebted. Its inflation is running very, very high right now. And if the economy begins to implode, it's not going to have the cash to do what it's been doing.
Just briefly, if you could, Peter, are you worried about the stability of Venezuela today and tomorrow and in the weeks ahead?
Well, one always has to be worried when a figure like Hugo Chavez leaves the scene. All of a sudden, all these people who had been smaller actors begin to play parts, and one doesn't really know the parts they're going to play, how well they're going to play them. I think Venezuela is deeply polarized today. It could become fragmented and fractured. Remember one thing, that Chavez not only held the alliance of pro-Chavez parties and individuals, he also was the glue that held together the opposition. Once he's gone from the scene, whether Venezuela will have an opposition and a government, or it will become fractured into a lot of individual parts with ambitions running wild. It's hard to tell at this point. Chavez just sort of blocked the rest of the stage from everybody else.
Peter Hakim, we appreciate that analysis. Thank you very much indeed.